Vavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karneभिः Shrunuyama Bhadram Pashyemakshaviryajatraः Sthirairangaih Sushtubhagam Sastanubhiः Vyashema Devahitayadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vruddhashavaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastaksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So now the Upanishad moves back and forth. There is no linear, so that's also lovely. Because now it starts with this story all over again with this person who is what caught in the ignorance and what this person is doing, right? So we see when before you come to Vedanta, who are you? One of the forms, and this is which I. So now you just have to just little bit fun. Right? Suppose you tell, oh, who is this I? You say I'm Jiva. What are you saying actually? When you say, okay, I'm a Jiva, if you use the technical definition of what I gave, what does it mean? It will be interesting. I'm limited is actually one way to, actually it's a nice way to say I'm limited, but Jiva is a technical definition, so let's see what it means. Exactly. So that means, exactly. So when you say, look at this, when you say I'm a Jiva, if you use the accurate definition of what Jiva is, you are actually saying the following. You are saying, I am this real nature is consciousness, but right now I'm ignorant, and because of this ignorance I have what? Physical, subtle and causal body, and what right now I'm manifesting as one given physical and subtle body among many different bodies that I have had in the past and I will have in the future. So when you declare yourself as a Jiva, this is what you are saying about yourself. Is this a nice way to explain who you are? That's why it's better to just say, I am limited, right? Yeah, that's much more easy, because that's much more, So therefore, this is the technical definition of who Jiva is, right? So therefore, it's good. So now you find yourself as a limited person, as what Ruxandra is saying. That's a lovely definition. We find ourselves as a limited person. Why do we find ourselves as a limited person right now? Because our whole identity, please don't use, you don't even know the word Jiva before you came to Vedanta. your identity, as Stefan very rightly said, was with reference to what? This body and mind, right? I mean, that's all. So, that your identity before you came to Vedanta was just with reference to this body and mind, right? So now, with this body and mind, because your self-identity is connected to that, you can't stand, you become really small in this grand scheme of things, and you can't stand being small because that's the arrangement, because your real nature, why you can't stand being small? Because your real nature is limitless, right? So the way things are arranged, you want to get rid of your smallness. So the only way that you have, which are your known means, is what? What will you do to get rid of this smallness? No, before, right? What will you do?
You start to search, like...
Exactly. You start to search for becoming big, right? And what will you do?
Actions?
Excellent, right? You search in the world, right? So what will make me feel a little bit better? So this is what a normal, when you look at the world, everybody is not searching for this knowledge. Everybody is, but everybody is searching for fulfillment. Please understand. So that means most of the people, how do they start? Just by engaging in the world and trying to what? Get anything, right? To become big. Let's keep our life simple. Just use your experiences and see what we all do for our getting rid of our feeling of smallness. Okay? So this is what the rest of the society is busy doing, which is searching for fulfillment, but not through knowledge, as Bio said, but looking within this, the solutions, right? And this is what this next verse is talking about. It says, Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanaha nirvedam ayat na asti akrutaha krutena tat vignanartham saha guru meva vigachet samit panihi kshotriyam brahmanishta. Beautiful verse, because while, okay, now let's look at what Bio is saying. While most of the people are searching for fulfillment by what? Getting things of the world. What are these different things of the world which are called, which kind of pursuits? Somebody wants a car, somebody wants a better job, somebody wants to have a boyfriend, somebody wants to get divorced, somebody is, right? I mean, people are busy doing so many things, right? So that means that the whole thing is that what our search for fulfillment is on, right? And we do different things for it. Now, there are millions of things that we do. So how do you put your life in order? Suppose I had to put it in categories. How would you categorize it? Vedas categorize. How do they say?
Dharma,
Excellent. Wonderful. So what it means is what there is artha, there are what? The pursuit of artha, kama and dharma. Very good. Okay. So, what is the pursuit of artha?
well, security.
Exactly. Anything through which you search for your security. Search for security. Because as a small person in this big world, you feel insecure, right? And then you want to feel more secure, and you want to, in order to feel secure, you want to get things. So, through which things we attach our security? Wealth, right? One of the ways in which we try to feel secure about ourselves is wealth. What else? Position, right? So that means the bigger position that you have a certain power, and then you have a capacity to control a few variables a little bit more than others, and you feel more secure, right? So we have some housewives in India. They are from pretty wealthy family. So they have many servants and they have cooks and then they have their personal secretary. So it seems as though the husbands have to work really hard, but for them everything is what? One phone call away. So what? One phone call away. So that means they have to tell the cook and the beautiful the lunch is on the table. And as they get up, then the whole house is nicely cleaned, right? And then they have to, suppose, come for one of my retreats and they have to call the secretary, book a ticket. So exactly, so life seems so easy, right? So that means the higher the position that you have, everything seems like everything is a phone call away, right? So that you make your life easy, right? So if you want to see who they are, come to Bombay. So, okay, so there is what the positions, the higher positions, along with it comes some privileges, right? So this is what we are all, and then we feel more secure, we feel we are big, right? Because everything is a phone call away where others are struggling for it. So then what else, in what else do you use, you search for your security? Relationships. Big. Now the funny thing about relationships is that first you search for security by coming together with somebody, and after a while you may find that you are more secure without that person. So that's a funny thing about relationships, right? So that means sometimes you want for yourself, you want to switch on a relationship for your security, sometimes for it becomes detrimental to your security, right? So this is how it changes, but security, relationships, right? Then what?
Organized life. Everything's in place, in order.
Yeah, so that means it's true that this organization and control, absolutely, it's a huge issue, right? That you want to control everything. This is like, I think really it's true that you're wanting to control everything and you want everything to move according to what you think is right. So that means, in effect, you want to become Ishvara. Really? So that means this whole need, it's the zeal for control, right? So that is also is a big thing, that controlling anything which is around you. So that is also, yeah.
But also the need to understand and like your surrounding and the world, like the search for knowledge could also be that expression for like to control, to know things means I control them.
Yeah.
And I'm the one who's explaining, so I control the situation.
Yeah.
It's
amazing. It's actually quite amazing that, I mean, even in spirituality, so many so-called gurus use that whole position to control so many people, right? So instead of the truth being at the center and your true nature being at the center, they become the center, right? So everybody is constantly, kind of, that person did this and that. I mean, I also talk a lot about Swamiji, but I talk about him because he made me see certain big things in life, right? And not because he was like this and he smiled at me and because he put his hand on me, and I mean, that's not right. So right? So that means it's true that, this whole, the whole, somehow we are all looking for, we think that somebody else will solve my problem. And you want to be that person who wants to, who promising to solve everybody's problem, and that is also your security is gained through that, right? So you assume roles. That's a very good, I have to tell you a story about that to make it real how this can happen. So I have a friend, she is separated from her husband, but they still have a good relationship. And her husband, ex-husband, still relies on her for different inputs, you know. So by doing that, she still has what? She feels that she has control over him. So now she has taken up this role of a helper, right? Helper, somebody who's trying to help him out, but now if he tells her that I'm seeing somebody else, she's what?
She's upset.
She's upset. Do you see that? She's assuming a role of a somebody who is separated and help. Once you have separated, right, officially, you actually have what? No real right, but this is what we call, you emotionally bind the person because you make yourself indispensable, because you help that person, but actually what you want to do is what? Through that external facade of help, you want to control the person. So that means this is a very, very common thing in relationships. Very common. Right? So that is your whole need to have complete ownership of the other person. Only then you feel secure. Otherwise you are shaking. So these are all subtle ways of controlling, and they are all related to your security. Actually what you are searching, you don't know actively, you don't know you are even controlling. Why? Because what you are, from your own standpoint, what you are doing is for looking for your security. That's why it remains all hidden. Kashi. In Sanskrit there is in French there is a word. It's called kash.
Kashi.
Means kashi. Kashi means to remain hidden. So from your own standpoint, that's why you don't even recognize that you have a control issue.
Especially because society is supporting this
Yes.
way of acting. It's not that society would stand up like it's like he's kind of weird because he's helping. No, it's a nice thing to do, to help other people.
Exactly.
But
And you also convince yourself that you are helping other. And so actually, because she comes to Vedanta class, she herself recognizes that, hey, when he's telling me that I'm seeing somebody else, I'm feeling very jealous and things like that. So actually, I'm taking on this role of helping him, but actually, I am insecure in this relationship. And even though I have taken up this relationship of, oh, I'm very strong and I'm supporting and all that, what is the real feeling that you have is what? I'm insecure and somehow I want to hold on to this relationship. So this is where I say that the mind starts telling you a story which is so away from realities. And you get so caught in your stories. And you lose track of realities. Simple things like this, you lose track. And this is why this commitment to truth and commitment to self-growth is critical, because otherwise you won't even realize what are the issues you have. So this is why, this is where you have to really relax in the order of Ishvara and let everything surface. Everything surface and welcome it and deal with it. So that means this security we seek through all of this. Now, kama.
Pleasure.
Different forms of pleasure, right? Kama in artha means that the things that will give us security, right? Kama is different pleasures. What are the different pleasures that now, all this is done for what? Don't forget the first thing. Your fulfillment. Exactly. You feel small. What is the first thing? You feel small. You want to become big through acquiring all of this. Okay? So now, what are the different pleasures that we indulge in?
Food.
Food is exactly. I remember growing up in India when we met our cousins, the only thing we talked about is what I ate in that restaurant and checked this thing out. Pani puri is good here, pav bhaji is good there. Right? These are all these Bombay street foods. So constantly, 80% of the conversation was about food. Okay, so that means what? Food is a great source of pleasure. Yeah. Hmm? Yeah? Yes. So you can write. Why not? Yeah, there is one thing. It's true that there's so much indulgence in that, and so many distortions in that happens because actually they are pleasure seeking, right? It's not like people, so much cruelty goes on also. Actually they are not very aware that they are inflicting pain, and they are searching for pleasure actually, right? So that means these are all convoluted thinking, right? Convoluted behaviors, where this can become so harmful for somebody else.
Alcohol?
Huh?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. Okay. Actually, you'll find once your commitment is to pleasure, it can go in all directions. I'm so happy. Alcohol, drugs, shopping, huh? Shopping. Every pleasure. Again, exactly. Relationships are not only the source of security, but we look for a lot of pleasure in relationships.
In changing relationships. About pleasure.
Yeah. This class is very honest. It's true. Art, music.
Being right.
Sorry?
Being right.
Being right, I think, will probably fall under dharma. It will probably fall under
Luxury.
luxury things, right? Cars, whatever. Cars, homes,
All kinds of new experiences.
Yoga.
all kind of.
Yoga.
People thought that they were being spiritual by doing it. Now you are putting it in pleasure category. Different, little discipline, let's avoid it. So, what else? Entertainment. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, entertaining you, right? That's why, Sterling, are you rich?
No. I did something wrong.
Okay, entertainment.
You have to pray.
If you are not yet, Stefan has a solution.
What about reading the Bhagavad Gita?
Oh wow, that's a, oh wow, okay, great. That can give you pleasure, a lot of pleasure, if you are a little bit more, I think if you have, yeah. So let's wait till moksha category. So right now, we are just here, a normal man, right? A normal person. Okay, so a normal person does all of this. Then some of these so-called normal person, they are also, as Turiya is saying, is what? Interested in doing things right. That is what we call dharma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certain sense of ethics. Yeah. So even thinking about, yes, I have all this, but am I doing it right? I'm getting it right way or not? Right? That also is something which is within human possibility, right? That yes, in fact, I have relationships, but am I treating my partner right? Each one is looking at their So I love to see all these dynamics that go on in the class. As a teacher, I enjoy the show. Right? Who looks at whom, and so there is somebody smiling, somebody like this. It's fun. It's really fun. Somebody's like this. I'll enjoy.
Du still sich so weird?
No, I was busy looking at right? And so that means, what? Okay, wonderful. So that means this sense of ethics that Turiya is talking about, right? So that means this is a whole thing of there are a few people who are concerned about, yes, I don't want to deny myself wealth and position and relationship and food and physical contact and maybe music, dance, but am I really doing it the right way or not? This is a question, right? So this is where comes the ethics. So therefore, the ethics is you're engaging, the ethics according to the Vedic, I'm sure that a lot of Western philosophers wrote about ethics because it's a universal topic, because this is what universally people do. It's not only Vedic, it's not peculiar to Indian society. This is just something, every society, there are people, and most of the people are engaged in these activities, right? So that's why we call it universal, okay? So therefore, and just as these activities are universal, even dharma is universal in some way, in lot of ways, okay? So, but the Vedic way of looking at dharma is, the Vedic thing is, it defines things, so it makes it slightly easier, okay? When we talk about dharma, according to this Vedic way, so itself is divided in three parts. One is what we call Samanya Dharma, which if you want to translate in English, it could mean universal ethical values. We will analyze each one of them a little bit later, okay? But let's first put the categories. The second thing is what we call Swadharma. And what this includes is you enjoy a particular place in the grand scheme of things. And therefore, you have specific roles and responsibilities which are unique to your place in the grand scheme of things. And not only that, it also changes over lifetime. It's not like you're born with one set of duties and you have to stick to it. When you are a child, there are certain different duties. When you are a teenager, different duties. As you become an adult, there are different duties. So the duties themselves change over a period of time. Your sphere of influence also changes over a period of time, and your ability to detect it and doing what needs to be done is what we call Swadharma. So don't look upon it as something which is static. It's constantly changing, and right? So please don't say I'm performing my Swadharma. You don't need to say that, right? Because there is no some constant thing called Swadharma. Your ability to detect what is required by me in this given situation, right, and doing what needs to be done is given as a term called what? It is, here we call it Swadharma, right? Swadharma means it is what is my duty and responsibility, okay? Now, your specific duties and responsibilities. And that requires detection. It's very easy to justify anything and say, I'm doing my Swadharma. So that means you have to be an alert person to actually assess what really is required in this given situation. Okay? Now, the third is what we, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talks a lot about, and that is that, what is the highest expression of dharma? When can we say that in terms of dharma, the person has become quite mature? When the person begins to look at what we call loka sangraha. That shows a pretty evolved human being, and that is the expansion that Lutz was talking about, Kurt was talking about the first day. Okay? What he was talking about is cooperation, expansion, connection with everything else, because otherwise you just remain this, oh yeah, what is mine, this thing, what is mine? You become very kind of inward looking person. You need to expand as a human being and find your connection. The more and more you find that connection, what happens is you convert from being a consumer and a demanding person to be a contributor. To be a contributor with enthusiasm, right? And this contribution, see, this is a human growth, becoming a contributor. Swamiji has written a book, no? Becoming from consumer to becoming a contributor. Huh?
From surviving.
From survival.
Yeah. Okay. From survival to be a survivor to be a contributor. Okay, so he uses these words, and this is something which is very, so where you expand beyond just your, see, initially it starts with just you is the center of the universe. Secondly, then your kind of your family, but then it has to expand further. Why is human growth? It's interesting. What happens is that generally, see, if you're not a healthy, emotionally mature person, what happens is that somebody else, you are only concerned about what your well-being. So when you see somebody else who, according to you, has what better well-being, it creates what? Jealousy in you. This is a very, very common, nobody can actually deny this feeling. At some point or the other in our life, we all feel jealous because we feel small and we have value for something, and we see somebody else having more than what we have and we feel jealous, right? So that means a normal human being, just a starting point, it will what? Start with jealousy. And please don't think that it's bad or anything. This is Ishvara's order, right? This is the way that human beings cope with feeling small, right? So that means, and it's universal in some ways. Until you make an effort and you become big, where you begin to see everything as what? In fact, the glories of Ishvara, right? Where you're not threatened by somebody else's what? Achievements. So that means you really have to, like suppose, right? You watch Wimbledon, right? Now, you watch Wimbledon, at least when I watch Wimbledon, right? I'm not jealous of Serena Williams, right? Why am I not jealous of her?
She's so far away.
Exactly. So that means that she's so far away. I'm not I'm not even hoping to be, unless I become, Neema becomes Sylvia next year. So the thing is that in this lifetime, I don't have that as a goal, so I don't get jealous of her, right? But suppose, somebody, I have a value for being 5 kilo less, and I see somebody who is that person, then what will happen? If I'm not mature, what will happen? Jealousy. I may not even know it, right? Very few people actually sit and tell themselves that, hey, I'm feeling jealous now, because that seems like you don't want to be this person. So what we do is we distort and we convert those messages. And easiest way to do it is what? She's tall but she's dumb. She's 5 kilos less, but at least, what have I done is, the very thing that I appreciated, what have I done? I have discounted it. For me to feel better. So that means, I'm now confused. Instead of acknowledging my jealousy, I convince myself that she's dumb. Do you see this? The complications of mind, they are just amazing. The mind's capacity to tell stories and our stories, to get engaged with the stories and lose that track of truth is just like that. That's why every day we pray.
And every day we can do something to lose 5 kgs.
Oh, exactly, right? So that means, how do you convert? Absolutely. How do you convert this feeling of jealousy? What Carl is saying is absolutely right. Is to first recognize, wonderful, to first recognize that actually I value losing 5 kilos. That is what I am. She's not intelligent is my projection. I don't even know whether she's intelligent or not. Right? So that means what is concerning me is I want to lose 5 kilos. So that means, if then what I have to do is what, as Carl is saying, if you want to go by the lake, swim in the lake, bother to jump in the lake, right? Walk a little. So that means this is how I can do something for myself, for something that I value. Do you see the nature of my actions? They become more aligned. I'm more aware of what I really think. And I'm more willing to work towards what I really want. And I'm not hiding this feeling of jealousy and entering into the game of criticism and fooling myself. Big, big job of self-growth. So that means this is what we call straightening out your thought processes, aligning with Ishvara. Straightening out what? Your thought processes. Yeah. So that means then you become more and more authentic person. Your mind begins to be more and more aware of what is really going on and come out of your stories. And proactively work for what you want.
Yeah, and stay realistic.
And stay realistic.
Because this is also a big thing.
Exactly. Right? So I can work on it. And the second thing that I can do is, when she is what Swamiji used to say. Now, once you have recognized this, actually I admire the way she looks. He says that now you act on it. So how do you act on it? Because that's a reality, right?
Tell her.
Exactly. You go and tell her that, hey, you look nice. Because that's your real feeling. So you strengthen your real feelings and you convert. This is what we call conversion. Right? You act on the truth. When you first recognize the truth and act on it, what you do is this falsity and pretense that we all carry, it begins to break down over a period of time. You begin to recognize more and more. This is why I say the first condition of spirituality is authenticity. If you don't have authenticity, the mind is given this whole big capacity to imagine. And it will create a havoc with imagination. And you will so lose sight of reality. Right? So therefore, we have to curb and we have to keep coming back to reality. And for that, we need to take small steps. Right? So this is the first, and then you want congratulate, and this, because that's your real feeling. Now this whole thing of, understanding of Ishvara, everybody is the same manifestation, all that also helps a little bit in the process. Because what happens is, you don't see yourself as me versus the world. This whole vision of looking at the world, the insecure me, and I have to confront with this big world which is all inimical to me. This will also break. With the understanding is, all that is here is this knowledge and power which is organizing all the forms in a highly intelligent way. And each one is what it is because of certain laws, infallible laws. So that means you can bring in this knowledge to then what? Also re-look at the picture, and then what hopefully will happen is you will graduate to the next stage where you can enjoy the glories of others without feeling small. This is the second stage, which is a result of undoing this emotion. If you don't undo this mess, you will remain here. So that means you have to take the initiative here and you have to undo it slowly, slowly. You will graduate to, hopefully, to the point where you can enjoy others' accomplishments without feeling what? Threatened. That is the second level of growth that we are talking about. The third level of growth is not only others' accomplishments and shining makes you frightened or insecure, you begin to contribute towards others' well-being. That means you are complete at the relative level in your dharma, in your maturity. So not only I don't feel threatened, what I can do in my own little capacity to make somebody, to contribute to well-being of somebody, that means that you have really used your free, you have learned to use your free will with what the highest alignment with Ishvara.
But this can all be there at the same time, can it?
Yeah?
It's not
It
like
all
you
can.
do this,
No, no,
and then you
no.
do the second, and then you do the third, but it's...
I mean, the thing is that, see, you're right, all that can be happen, but at this, you can't on one hand also feel jealous and also, it's possible. With some people you feel jealous and to some others you contribute and all that. But what also happens is, as I told you, sometimes if the emotional life is not in order, what happens is, as I was telling you, that this friend of mine, she separated her husband, she told herself that she's contributing to the life of her husband, but because in other areas those emotions were not taken, she was using it as control. You see what I mean? So ultimately what is very important is that you need to sort your emotions out, otherwise what happens is this mix-up continues to remain.
But I don't have to first sort out all my emotions before
sure.
I can start to help her.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, but suppose you are starting to help, you also have to then detect, the motivation. So it's an ongoing process, right? Even if you embark on this journey, you have to still go back and you're right, look where there are distortions. Absolutely. It's not chronological. But what you want to, so here, when you contribute, because you feel connected, right? You feel connected, you become a natural contributor to the well-being of others. You are a good human. This is as far as what dharma can take you.
And you don't put them down anymore, do
Yes.
harm to others.
Exactly. You become more and more sensitive about what. So, okay, that is what we call loka sangraha. Samanya dharma. Let's come back a little bit more and let's a little bit understand what these universal values are. So, universal values are defined as something that every human being, regardless of culture, regardless of what gender, regardless of religion, regardless of birth, understands. It is part of human programming, and that is every human brain comes with some basic understanding of what is right and what is wrong. That's why it's called universal ethical values.
It is not. What about age? I think with age, as a child, we don't have already we have to develop it. So this.
Okay. So, in fact, what Vedic vision is that a human brain comes with this. Otherwise, how are you able to know the existence of dharma? So this is why I said the Vedic view is slightly different. And the thing is, every child, without any external intervention, is given this understanding, which is part of this Ishvara's order. So Surya showed me one study, and that was an experiment. And the experiment I will just explain very briefly. So at Yale University,
there's a professor called Bloom with his wife. So they are all behavioral psychologists and so on. And their question is about this. What is the origin of morality?
Yeah. And what they did was an experiment, and that was, you want to tell?
No, go ahead.
It's about the cookie and the child?
No.
Okay. It's about a child who is 6 months old is exposed to a scenario. Okay? So now the 6-month-old child, what we are assuming is not yet taught by anybody. Right? Is not yet taught by the parents, hasn't yet gone to the school, has no other external influences because it's just too young, right? Now this child is exposed to one scenario, and that scenario is that of cooperation. What is this cooperation? So that means one puppet is eating and the other puppet is helping, right? So helping is a cooperative, is caring. Right? So now the child is exposed to that scenario. After that, the child is exposed to the other scenario, and that is the scenario of conflict. So what is a conflict? One puppet is eating and the other puppet is being disruptive, right? You're taking the food, you're, really making the person disturbed, and you're, So now the child is exposed to the scenario of conflict. Now, you can't ask the child, what is your preference? Because the child is not yet able to speak. It's only 6 months child, right? So therefore, what then they did is put both the scenarios simultaneously. Both the things were going on simultaneously. And what was the assumption? Whatever the child feels more comfortable with, that child will look what more, something which is what the person
In fact, it's
likes
not this,
more.
Neema. It's not simultaneously.
Yeah.
What they have done is very clever. The puppets are of different colors, okay? And then they ask the child, they cannot ask, but they give the 2 puppets to the child. And the child has to either choose and grab one to take with him, and sometimes he cannot grab, and this is where what Neema is saying is true, he will spend more time looking at one than the other. Of course, to complete the experiment, they interchange the colors or two to neutralize the effect of the color of the puppet. And what is happening then, then you can continue if you want, Neema.
We are the scientist. Okay, I mean, yes. So what they showed is consistently, I think almost 95%.
Yes, exactly.
Almost 95%. Can you imagine this statistical, of kids, they grabbed which?
The
good one.
The good one.
So this is what we say, that this is what we call the universality of dharma. Right? Now, so the universality of dharma that's given to everyone, then the next question will arise, if it's given to everyone, everybody should be walking saints. Because, right, everybody understands it, it's given to everyone, there should not be any problem following dharma. Then, why when we look at this world, we find what? So many problems. So this is where what we say is, along with this understanding of dharma, we are also given what? Free will. Right? The ability to choose. And like Valmiki, how was he using his free will? To find the easy way out for his earning. Right? Sounds easy. Just go and grab somebody else's wallet. Why should I work 8 hours in some office and get bored and take my boss's God knows what and all that? Just go grab it, right? So this is how, or sometimes, right, you have to do a given thing. Sometimes it's very unknown, please understand. So, and this I have seen. I used to work with the UN for a very long time, and I have seen this. Initially, when people come to work with the UN, they come with what? The most noble goals. What are the most noble goals? Of changing the world, eradicating the poverty, saving the world, all kinds of, right? And I almost also a little bit like that as a teenager, right? I mean, I wanted to do something for the world. So what happens is, you come with these amazing, beautiful goals. Over a period of time, you begin to understand that the world is too complex, right? And there are too many variables, and your ability to actually change everything is relatively limited. That's one thing there. So, but what's interesting is, but most of the people, suppose you recognize it, you think you leave the UN? No. Why won't you leave the UN? Because by the time you have recognized this, you also have a fat salary, you have a beautiful home, you have diplomatic status, you have fancy car, right? And all that becomes not so easy to give up, right? This is life now. But the complications increase. What are the complications? Suppose you applied for a promotion and you didn't get it. Then what will happen? Some frustration walks in. Right? So first, where did you start with this whole noble idea of saving the world? Now where are you enjoying your little luxuries and frustrated? Do you see this? Human nature, human vulnerabilities. Now, you are not only frustrated, now you have to, what you have to say, this frustration you have to justify to yourself. So instead of correction, right, either what is the right correction? If I'm in the system, what, either I do what I need to do, even if everything doesn't happen my way, or I leave the system. Wonderful. That's what we call faculty of choice. It's not like my karma has taken me, so therefore, right, I'm stuck here for the rest of my life. It's not like that. You have that faculty of choice and you can do either of the two. But suppose you decide to stay on and you continue to what? Carry this frustration and increase your stories. What are your increasing stories? This UN as a system is a failure. Right? The bosses are so kind of, they have this nepotism. So they only promote what their favorites, people who kind of, go and, be nice to them. So that means I'm this ethical person and I'm so righteous and the world doesn't reward me, the system is a failure, the boss is really bad, the colleague is corrupt because he's, right? Now you have created a very big story. In this story, who are you? This victim, the person who's righteous, but who's victim of all these evil system and evil boss and evil colleagues. And while you are creating this picture, what happens to your own productivity? Decreases. So that means your own contribution begins to be down. You're drawing more and more from the resources of the organization, not giving back, but your picture is what? I'm right and everything else is wrong. Very common. I've seen it again and again and again with my own eyes. And this is why Swamiji asked me to go back and make it in the world. You go and you have to see everything and you still have to what? Manage it. You have to keep your enthusiasm levels high. You have to remain a big contributor within your own capacities. And at the same time, don't take on the burden of changing the country on yourself. All this needs to be learned. Ishvara. This is what we call bringing Ishvara in your life.
You have to trust Ishvara to be
You
able
have
to do
to,
so.
exactly.
And it's self-growth.
And this is what we call
Yeah.
self-growth.
Cannot skip it.
So that you can't skip it. Because what is within your capacity, you have to do. You see? But what is not in your control, what you have to do is what? Not try to control. This controlling person, right? That is why it seems as though Ishvara is unfair. Controlling person finds Ishvara unfair because you want Ishvara, you think you know better than Ishvara. And you want Ishvara to do what you think is right. And when it doesn't happen, it seems there is some problem with this whole computer of Ishvara. It's failing a little bit.
And when it does, it's all your merit. It's all on you.
Yes,
but when
exactly.
it doesn't, it's on
Then it's
somebody
not-
else.
Exactly. Right? So this is a human mind. And this human mind has to change. Because this human mind is operating from its own stories. It's not in connection with what is going on. So therefore, this is something that one actually needs to do, that if I really think that the system is so bad, I always have the free will to what? Leave. Don't say my karma binds me there. That's your excuse to stay on and take more money. Right? Right? So that means you always have a choice to leave. If you decide to stay, you have to what? Give your best. Karma yoga. Changing the way you interact with the universe. Changing your relationship with everything else. Doesn't mean that once you decide to become a karma yogi, your boss will change. Your colleagues will change. The system will change. Everything will remain exactly as it was before. What changes? You. Wonderful. You, your attitudes, your vision.
So I totally follow you, and because I teach ethics,
Yes.
the problem for me in my daily life as a teacher is to really promote this idea
Yes.
to children,
Mm.
because the children, they live in a society in which a lot of so to say Adamic things are going on. Like there's like really only a few role models that really live this kind of vision, let's say. I try to do my best, like, but I'm not like a role model in that way. But I try to really motivate them to do to make the right decision. But of course it's their choice. But how to motivate like a small child when they just walk around in this world and just observe politics and all this stuff? So my question is how to keep them motivated in a small scale, like in a way they can understand, even if the family is not following, ethical principles, society is not doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's a bit difficult.
So, see, I think, yeah, it's true. It's true that it's not that easy to convince somebody else, because as I told you, the method that Narada used to tell Ratnakar was to kind of question a little bit, right? And make him aware of little bit the consequences. But Ratnakar could have always just walked away and shut up and said, okay, I just want your... So it's not totally in your hand, but at the same time, see, as a teacher, whether you recognize or not, the students look up to you. Really.
Yeah.
You may not even realize how much students look up to you.
Yeah.
And your word counts. At first, you need to believe that your word counts. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you keep thinking that your word is just one little input in so many inputs, then you may start thinking, oh yeah, so what difference does it going to make? Because you enjoy a special relationship with these kids, and your word, enjoying your position, counts for them, right? That's one thing. The second thing is to somehow make them see the consequences. So the one way of this Samanya Dharma following in the Vedic context, in fact, it makes you see that there are consequences for you. When you don't recognize, if dharma only seems my responsibility, then it seems, who cares about responsibility? Let me do something which is easy. But suppose you begin to understand that this easy way has consequences and it does bring suffering, then hopefully, I don't know if you're there, because nobody wants to harm oneself. That is the prime, that's an innate human nature, that you want to preserve yourself and you don't want to do anything to harm yourself. So if you can make them see that you can't get away for too long, then I think, and it will only add your burdens, then you're not doing it to oblige others, you're not doing it to oblige you, you're not doing it to oblige anybody else. It's just smart living for what? Ensuring that you don't suffer, right? If you can connect it, I think, I don't know, but that's one way of showing the importance of ethics in one's life, right? And this is where what actually Samanya Dharma is taught like that. Because as I told you, people don't, even though it's given, people make shortcuts. And all the time, right? And the whole society around makes shortcuts. So the only way, so that's why we combine dharma with karma. Exactly. We combine dharma with karma. Dharma is referring to your faculty of choice. And the karma refers to the consequences. No, this karma, when you use dharma and karma like that, it refers to what? Depending upon how you have used your faculty of choice, there is consequence. Right? So cause and effect relationship. Right? There is a consequence. And the consequences are of two types, seen and unseen. And in fact, when you talk about this seen, because every child who has kind of done something and has undergone some suffering, then the child will recognize. Because why? It's the experience of the child. You're not acting as somebody who's giving a big lecture and advice on how to follow dharma. You're using the child's experiences and engaging with the child to see certain realities which the child has missed out.
Therefore, you need to have a relationship.
That's
with the
why you
child,
need to have a relationship.
And based on trust.
Yes.
Because they have to tell you stuff. Maybe they won't tell their parents what.
Exactly. And that's why, see, the stories help a lot. Right? So because suppose you tell the child, oh, if you do this, this will happen to you. So then the child is sometimes, it kind of sees, but it's not. But suppose you talk about yourself or an ex-person. Then this happened and this is how the person deviated, made easy choice, and this is what it ended up with, right? That kind of gives, without putting the child on a spot, it gives certain understanding of relationships. And this is why this time in Bonn I did Mahabharata. And I did Mahabharata in a way that I talked about different characters and their emotional makeup. And with that emotional makeup, the choices they made and the consequences of those choices. When you create a it's a kind of interesting, complex story like this, for a child, it's fascinating. Why? Because they are not threatened. It's not like you are advising them that you have to do this and you have to be like this and you have to be ethical. You are just telling how things evolve and they are fascinated. But what they subconsciously learn is this fact that, hey, the choices you make, the consequences may appear 10 years later, but they do appear.
The false coupon story is very good for this.
Ah, okay. I have you know the story?
Yeah, the story is a nice one.
Nice one?
Yeah.
Do you all want to hear the story of false coupon? Okay. Okay. So, when I had gone to South India, I had gone to one the place, and then the place had a library, and in library, and there was this book which kind of attracted me, and the name of the book was Short Stories by Leo Tolstoy, right? And Leo Tolstoy, the big philosopher, and Gandhiji was very much attracted to him. So I had read his Anna Karenina, but I had not read his short stories. So I thought, let me read it, right? So in one of those stories, they were brilliant stories. Really, I enjoyed those stories. One of the stories which stayed with me, and that is what we call false coupon, right? So this false coupon story was interesting. It starts in Russia, the story starts in Russia, and it starts on a Sunday morning when a father is reading the newspaper, right? Typical thing that in any family, the father would read the newspaper. This little boy goes to, when the little boy goes to the father, and because it's a beginning of the month, and the beginning of the month is his pocket money time, right? So he gets some pocket money for the month. So he goes and now the father is busy reading about whatever politics and all, and the boy says, hey, Dad, my pocket money. And Dad said, yeah, sure. He says, but this month, his pocket money was at that time, right, Leo Tolstoy time, was 2 rubles, right? So he says, but this month, instead of 2 rubles, I want, 10 rubles. Father is like, what? What do you mean? From 2 to 10? How? What do you need it for? So the boy says, there was a show during the week, last week, and it was a classical theatre, and I really wanted to go for it. I didn't have the money, so I borrowed from my friend, and I bought a ticket, and I went, right? And I promised my friend that I'll return the ticket, the money for the ticket, at the beginning of the month, at the time that I get my monthly allowance. I'll ask my dad for a little bit more and I'll pay back the ticket. Now, so the father was like, who told you to go to the theatre without my permission? Right? So that means you're so irresponsible. The father gave 5 adjectives to this child. That you're irresponsible, you don't even ask for anything, you do things and you are just completely blowing away the money and you don't know anything. Now you solve the problem, I have got nothing to do with it, I'll just give you your 2 rubles. So, and the father gave at that time, the name of the story is false coupon. So he gave 2 coupon worth of rubles to this child. Now the child was so disappointed. He didn't expect this reaction from the father. He thought that the father will just ask him to be happy. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't go and have drugs and all. He just went to a theatre. Right? And what was wrong in that? Just watching some nice show and all. Father goes all the time. He didn't think it was wrong. Right? And little more money, so what? So he got a little confused with this whole reaction. But more than that, he got really worried as to how will he pay back this money that he has borrowed from his friend, which is 8 euros, 8 rubles, not euros. Okay, yeah, 8 rubles. So now he's desperate because he has this sense of responsibility that he has to pay back his friend, right? Then he goes to his friend and he says, can you borrow me 8 rubles, because I have to, I bought a ticket and I have to pay back to my friend. I promised it, and my father is saying no. So the friend said, 8 rubles? I don't have that kind of money. So he says, now the boy is really worried. He doesn't know how to come out of the situation. He feels stuck. So now the friend says, what do you have now? So he says, I just have 2 ruble coupon that I have and that my father has given me as my allowance, and that's certainly not sufficient for me to pay back to my friend. The friend says, I have an idea. Oh, you have an idea? The boy goes, wow, okay, I have a solution. So the boy says, okay, what? This other friend says, you just write 1 in front of 2. And it will become 12 rubles. From then on, it became forged. It's not false, it is forged. You know forged?
Yeah.
Yeah. Forged coupon. Name of the story. Right? Forged coupon. The child, what was his first reaction? Dharma. He knew immediately this is not the right solution. You can't just put 1 and make a 2 ruble coupon into 12 ruble. But the first input he got from his brain is, you can't do it. But then when he started thinking about it, he says, yeah, but what are my options? Nobody is going to give me anything. And I'm stuck with this debt. And what do I do? So then, what he feels as though he's stuck, and he decides to add 1. So from then on, it became what? Forged coupon of 12 rubles. Now, what you need to do is encash this coupon into cash. So they came up with a great idea. What? Go to a store, right? Buy 2 ruble worth of sweets, right? And what this shop will give you back? The change in cash, and that is how many? 10 rubles. And this 10 rubles, out of that, what he will do is 8 rubles he will give back to his friend, and he will be left with profit of 2 rubles.
Maybe 3. Let's get the other one as well.
Exactly. So he has now not only 2 rubles worth of sweets and the 2 ruble of what? This pocket money that he normally has, and he has also repaid the debt. Sounds like a great solution, right? So now he says, this is how we begin to use our buddhi, our free will. But not because we are bad, we find that we are stuck sometimes, or we want to find easy ways. So therefore, the story goes, and they said, okay, if you go to a nearby store, you will be caught immediately. Let's go to a little bit farther neighborhood, and they go to a neighborhood which is a little far, and they go and enter a shop. The shopkeeper is a woman, and these 2 little boys enter the shop, and they ask for sweets worth 2 rubles. So the shopkeeper gives this sweets, and in return what they give is 12 ruble coupon. Now this woman, she sees 2 innocent young boys, so she doesn't really bother to check much. So she takes a ruble, and what she gives them back? 10 ruble worth of change in cash. The boys are ecstatic. They think they have solved the problem ingeniously. Right? So therefore, and they walk home really happy. Now, it's Leo Tolstoy. He's not some dumb guy, right? So the story goes on. The story goes on and it says, now, what happens at that night in the shop? The scene changes. At the shop at night, and the husband comes to do the accounts of the lady who was a shopkeeper to check the accounts. And while he was checking all the cash that he got, and also he saw this coupon, but being this accountant, his eyes were really sharp, and he immediately saw what 1 was added to a printed, 2. 1 was with a pen and 2 was printed. Right? With his sharp eyes, he saw it. And when he saw it, he asked his wife, "What is this?" And she said, "Why are you shouting? This is just a coupon." "Who gave you this coupon?" "Oh, there were just 2 young boys who came and they bought some sweets and they just gave me this coupon." "And what did you do?" "I took it and I gave them the change back of 10 ruble." "You are really stupid." You can't even distinguish. I mean, you are so gullible. You are so careless. You just don't even know how to do this small job of looking after the shop. I just never can trust you. Right? A big lecture from the husband to his wife. Wife. What does the wife think? The wife says, "I should have never married this man." My mom told me how, insensitive he was, how totally, he just keeps putting you down. And I was so much in love with him. I overlooked all of this. And now I'm suffering. I just hate him now. So, right? And I'm stuck now with this man, insensitive man. So that means there was a huge fight between husband and wife. Now, still the husband, being that money-minded person, he still wanted to recover what? The loss that he made. Human mind. So he also has to make a plan of how to get rid of this coupon. So he says the best way to do it is go a little bit away from the city, right? And go to the peasant and let's buy some wood for the winter in bulk. And I can just buy the wood worth of 12 rubles, and then what? I'll have wood for the whole winter, and I'm giving it to a poor peasant. Right? Who probably will not even check, like my wife didn't check. Right? So therefore, he goes to this rural area, he buys the wood worth 12 rubles, and he gives that coupon to that peasant, and the peasant doesn't also check, he takes it. Now the husband is really happy. Just as the boy was really happy, he has solved the problem. Now the husband is really happy, he has solved the problem. What happens to the peasant? The story moves to the peasant. The peasant at night goes to goes to the bar. He wants to have some vodka, celebrate all of a sudden he had a windfall of 12 rubles, and somebody came and bought so much wood from him in big bulk, and he wants to celebrate. So he goes to a bar and has a couple of vodka, and he pays it by this coupon, and the bar owner knows it and immediately calls the police and puts him in jail. 2-3 different rounds he goes on, which I'm not going to tell you. The story ends with being a Leo Tolstoy, the philosopher, asking us a question. For all these series of events, who is responsible? And who is, my question to you is, it's lunchtime, who is responsible?
Everyone. Yeah.
Everybody was responsible. Exactly. Each one had its part. Each one tried to what? Exactly. This is the consequences of easier way. Each one thinks I've solved the problem. And the consequence is not now. What this story shows is consequences go way beyond. Where is this question of giving little more money to somebody going to jail? It seems as though there is no connection, but it's all connected. Intricacies of dharma, intricacies of Ishvara. So that means now on top of it, what the result comes back to all of them. Further intricacies of Ishvara. Right? If you begin to, through these kind of stories, if you begin to make people understand that every choice that you make has tremendous consequences. You can't make this, you can't abuse this faculty of choice. People suffer at times for rest of their life trying to overcome pain because you have acted irresponsibly. Right? So that means at least when you come, what you have already done, you can't carry the burden of that, right? But at least when you come to Vedanta, you have to learn to conform to dharma. You can't just say that, oh, dharma and all is all in relative world. You can't do that. Because you are violating Ishvara. And when you are violating Ishvara, all consequences come back to you and it increases your suffering. And what are you interested in is what? End of suffering. What we call smart living is help yourself. This same knowledge you can distort. This is why a straightforward, straight thinking mind is a prerequisite for Vedanta. Anything that you learn, you can twist. The mind has the capacity to twist to suit yourself. This is why every day you have to pray to Lord Sun and say, hey, give me some clarity, help me. And let my commitment be to the truth. Every night when we are doing this Vedic chanting, what we are chanting this mantra. Beautiful mantra. Asatoma Sadgamaya. Vedic mantra. Take me from this untruth to the truth. Because my mind is at times so muddled up, I'm not even able to have any clarity as to what exactly is, what am I really feeling, what this situation really calls for, what is the appropriate response. It's caught in its own stories, but its stories seem real to it. You're caught. So you feel you have nothing to change, it's the world who has to change. So that means you have to help yourself in this. So asatoma sadgamaya. Tamasoma jyotirgamaya. What? From that, how will I go from untruth to the truth. I have to, the only way I have is to what? Increase my knowledge. That's the only way. The more and more, see, in this process there is no totally 100% till you get to the final truth. But until then, you can't say one step, what difference does it make, and not take that step. A journey, this is a very common thing, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with what? The first step. So that means you have to begin to remove your ignorance. So the whole focus changes from blaming the world and pretending for you as this righteous one who's victim of circumstances to taking responsibility for your life. That's the first step. Right? And then you begin, then you get interested in correcting your distortions. Otherwise you remain in your distortions. So that is the tamasoma jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma amrutam gamaya. If you start with this process of taking care of small ignorance and begin to see relative truths more and more clearly and align your actions and emotional being and everything more and more according to the order of dharma of Ishvara, and in the understanding of the all-pervading presence of Ishvara, if you become this person who is responsible, dharmic, alive to seeing one's role in the grand scheme of things, enthusiastic, not carrying the burden of people are like this and system is like this and this, able to take anything that comes with a certain amount of understanding, not losing sight of presence of Ishvara. You are emotionally healthy human being, dharmic, and the outcome is what? There is a beautiful verse in the Gita. The indicator of are you aligned or not is what? Cheerfulness. Prasanna chetasaha. Beautiful. Prasanna chetasa is not this artificial hey, like Swamiji used to say, right? Don't always hey for anything. So Swamiji used to say that somebody came and told, right, that oh, my father passed away. Hey. It's not, you don't have to laugh with that. I mean, that's not called cheerfulness. Right? Cheerfulness, that's what I'm saying. Hey, please, this being alive to Ishvara means authenticity all the way, honesty all the way, truthfulness all the way. You don't get to the final truth till you settle small truths. So that means this whole commitment to dharma in form of Ishvara. It's not a small thing. When that is pretty well established, it paves the way for moksha, the fourth pursuit. Moksha. Freedom. Next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam